Hello guys, and welcome to my first video on the comprehensive guide series, in which I will talk about units and how to build them to optimize their strength and just get the best out of them with the least amount of resources. So, in today's video, as anticipated, I will be talking about ignition weapons. So I will talk about which sets are best for which units. Please keep in mind, as usual, that these are just my personal opinions. I've tested a few of them. Uh, the ones that I couldn't test because I don't have the units, etc. I would just rather key it and try to reason what could work best on them and stuff like that. So, ignition weapons, when they came out, they really changed a lot of things because you could then start pushing a lot higher. You would need fewer copies of units because the three purple effect that give you um, additional defense would then be offset by the slot 2 of the ignition weapon. So if you didn't have a unit at 3 purple, no problems, you could just upgrade the slot 2 in your ignition weapon and you will get the same result. Same thing for HP. So the 40% HP that you get from orange 4, sorry, is not anymore that mandatory, even for close range units. You could just upgrade the HP set and the HP piece and you would be good to go. So with that being said, it's not that easy to get the resources to upgrade the ignition weapon systems because the whetstones are not that common and you don't get that many of them. So I would highly recommend not to overinvest in a specific piece. Like I wrote here in the notes, plus 20 is expensive, so you should try and settle at the beginning for a plus 12 or plus 16 piece. And the most important thing is that these pieces have randomized stats. At least the substats are always random, and the main stats are fixed for slot 1, 2, 3, and they can change for slot 4 and 5. That's the reason why in those slots, in those cells, you will find also written which main stat you want to look for. Again, I will go in more detail in this video, but what's important to notice or to consider is that every ignition weapon piece can have up to 4 substats. Obviously, the more you have at the beginning, the better, but that's not always the case, and now I'm going to explain why. So basically, every single substat can roll one of 4 values. One of them being the lowest one, and one of them being the highest. So for example, physical pierce could roll 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, or 4.5. So in this case, it rolled 2.5. So it's in the low range that it could roll. So there are cases in which even if the piece has 4 rolls that you like it had, in this case could have been physical pierce, crit rate, crit damage, and attack, but they were all the lowest possible value, like 1.5 physical pierce, 1% attack, then 1.5% crit rate, 1.5% critical hit damage. That piece would not be that good. You still have the possibility in 5 upgrades to roll some high numbers. So you had 1.5% physical pierce, but you rolled 4.5, and that takes it to 6%, which is kind of average, not too bad. And so you could get a good piece out of it, but you might also have a piece with 3 substats. They're just physical pierce, 4.5, crit hit rate 3.5, crit damage 4.5. So already like 2 to 3 times higher than the other piece. And that could be also more valuable to upgrade. Because you could be really unlucky and just always get low rolls, and you would end up with a piece that's probably worse than another one at +0 for the substats, obviously. That's especially true for evasion accuracy, effect hit, and effect resistance, because those stats can roll 3, 6, 9, and 12. So in that case, if you hit 4 times the same stat, but it's always a 3, it's the same as a new piece without any upgrades with a 12 in accuracy. So let me show you one piece that rolled quite well here for Kun Ran. So this piece here, as you see, my accuracy here is 30, which means I hit 2 times 12 and 1 times 6, or 1 times 12 and 2 times 9. So always in the upper side of things. This is really good, but it could have been a 9. If it just hit, like if the default was 3 and then it hit 3 2 more times, it would have been 9, which could have been easily the starting stat for this piece. So it's not always true that when you upgrade a piece, like you have to take into account the variations of each stat, and you don't have to worry too much about whether it has 4 or 3 stats. Obviously, if they are the same, 4 stats is better because you get an additional upgrade. But if you have 3 stats that you really need and they are at a high roll, then that's great. That's better. So that being said, now let's just go into the like the list I have here. So you will see that I didn't put as many mandatory here as the other tabs that we will see in future videos, because as I said, ignition weapons are really expensive, so you don't want to overinvest in them, risking to waste precious resources. And so I tried to give the mandatory only to certain pieces, like for the close range characters. I think having defense and HP to +12, it's really important because they need it to survive long enough, and it will help them a lot also in dealing damage. So it's pretty self-explanatory, at least this lot 1. I chose mandatory for the attack piece on the main DPSs and not the sub DPS. For sub DPSs, I use the recommended, like Hats. Hats is not a main DPS anymore. It was until floor 16, but then it started to die way too quickly. It could probably survive a little bit better now, at least in PvP. I think Hats is still really good. With a few, like, if you take into account a few of his strengths, like his HP recovery linked to crit rate, and also the new sets that give him attack speed and lifesteal. That's really good for him. But like the main carries, like could be a Wang Nanja, Yeon, Joaquin, Kiseya. This guy, I had to like, if he had a role, it would be not main DPS but assassin. So still, you would need attack. But like there are units, guys, that are not really worth it. So when you look at these at these tabs, always take into account also the tier list. Like if you see, oh, okay, this guy need these things, yes, but then you look at the ranking and it's like is D tier, like okay, so definitely not worth to invest. It could have been also okay to use the overkill, but this is more like if you want to play a certain unit, what do you need? And in this case, you need attack, you need to have a little bit of crit damage, magic pierce, etc. But yeah, this is just to give a brief overview of why you don't see as many mandatory stats, especially you don't see any in slot 4 and 5, because these are, one, difficult to farm. You don't get a lot of those pieces to start with, to begin with, and also it's difficult since they have 5 possibilities each. It's difficult to get the one you want with also good substats. It's really not easy. So what I want to mention before going ahead with just explaining every single unit, what I think is best, it's just to talk about two stats that are not that clear, and they are not clear to me either. And those are effect eat and effect resistance, and magic and physical pierce. So let's start with effect eat and effect resistance, which I never chose for any unit, only because I do not understand how they work. Like if we look at the website, like here, there is like a brief explanation of each stat, and we see that effect hit affects the chance your debuffs and status effects will miss when applying them to enemies. First of all, I've never thought that was a thing. Like I thought once you have like a skill that says when you hit the enemy, blah blah blah, it's stun. I'm like, okay, so if I hit, the enemy is stunned. That's it. There is no way a successful hit would result in a non-stun. But apparently, I don't know if it's just being introduced with the ignition weapon, probably yes, but it's more like, it seems to be an accuracy thing, like an accuracy thing. So you hit, okay, good. Now you have to check if you applied the debuff or not. So what I think this is pretty much how accuracy and evasion work. So if you have more effect hit chance than the opponent, then it's more likely that you will hit it. If you have it lower, your chances will be lowered. But again, I have no chance of confirming it, and we cannot even test it because in the arena simulation, you cannot pick the ignition weapons. So I have no way of checking whether increasing the enemy effect resistance and having my unit with 0 would result in never hitting a debuff or a CC, or if having the same number will change something, if I just need to have it higher than the opponent's effect resistance. We have no idea about those things. So I wouldn't really bother with these stats anyway. I will try and understand. I don't know. I will try and look out for clues on how these actually work, but it's not clear. I think there are supports that could use it, the effective chance. I don't think effect resistance is actually needed on any unit, because at the end of the day, the main DPSs will want offensive stats for sure, and most units already have ways of gaining like status effect resistance, immunity, or whatever. So I don't feel like there is a real need to have this stat that just takes the space of other more useful and more reliable. I just feel like if you're unlucky and you get hit by an effect, just retry the stage and that's it. So I don't know. I don't really care too much about these two stats, and I would avoid them, at least until we have a clear explanation of how they work. And yeah. So until then, I would just say, guys, ignore them. just think of them as non-existent. I didn't check, and maybe we can check it live, if the opponents have some sort of effect resistance on them. No, they are at 0, 0. So to me, this stat is useless. So at least for adventure. I don't know then if in PvP there would be some instances where you would actually need I don't know, because probably most players will still avoid it. Maybe some of them will have some effect resistance rolled in some substats. You would probably have some effect hit rolled in some substats. So I don't know. These two is not clear, and I would avoid using them in any case because adventure, as we just saw, the enemies are not running it, so it doesn't matter. And it should be fine. If both have 0, I think it's okay. And you will probably have more than 0 here and there. Some units will, so it's fine. Then the next two stats are magic peers and physical peers. These are even trickier because the description we see here is just affects the amount of damage dealt when using magic or physical attacks. And this to me is really not clear. And as I said before, we have no way of testing it reliably. So we cannot be sure how it works. But to me, the ways it could work are the following. Like what this description makes me think is that they are just going to deal additional damage. That's it. Like you take the damage you deal and you multiply by your magic peers. That's the simplest way. It could be, I don't know. That's what I would think reading this description. The other way would be to decrease the amount of magic or physical resistance that the opponent has when you hit an attack. And at that point, you would have different scenarios possible. Like, let's say you have 50% magic peers, and the opponent has 40% magic resistance. At that point, the scenarios could be your 50% magic peers brings the opponent to 0, in this case, 40 minus 50, 0, because you cannot go below 0. Second scenario would be you can go below 0, so that would mean a minus 10% on their resistances, meaning you deal 10% more damage than if they had no resistance. So it's still almost as if it's a plain increase in damage. Then the other option, which I think is the least possible of all, is that you have 50% magic peers, meaning you reduce by half the opponent magic resistance. So they have 40%, you have 50% magic peers, the opponent will have 20% magic resistance. I don't think that's the case. So I don't know, guys. I would say, looking at the description, if we look at the one for critical hit resistance, it clearly says decrease the enemy's critical hit rate when hit by an enemy. So it's explicitly saying decrease the enemy's critical hit rate. But in the case of magic peers, it's not saying decrease the enemy's resistance when blah blah blah, stuff like that. So I don't know exactly how this works. So for the sake of this video, and what I think is the most likely, is that the enemy resistance will be reduced up to 0. So if the opponent has 9% magic resistance and you decrease it by 40%, it will still be 0. This will mean that you could go way above what you actually need and would make this stat less valuable overall. Unfortunately, again, we have no ways of testing, so it's complicated. But if we look at, okay, I took correct, but like in this case, this guy has 15% magic resistance and 23% physical resistance. So having 40% magic pierce would just give us 15% more damage, pretty much more or less, give it or take, but it would just reduce his magic resistance to 0. So I don't know. It doesn't sound that valuable to me, and I hope it's not like that, because that will make magic pierce and physical pierce really useless. I will probably try and run some testing if I can find a way to do so reliably. But yeah, it's complicated. It's probably more likely that it will just flat out increase the damage you deal by that amount. That's probably also what this description is suggesting. So I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know, guys. Also for this one, I'm sorry if I couldn't give you any certainty, but unfortunately, with Arena Simulation not giving you the possibility of running specific ignition weapon sets is really, really difficult. Once I figure it out, and if any of you manage to figure it out, please let us all know, and I will make sure to pin that comment. And yeah, so that was pretty much all. And yeah, so let's go over quickly the different units and what I think is best. So as a rule of thumb, I would say, and what I put here in the list, the support characters will have their slot 4 and slot 5 mainly focused on survivability. So in this case, as we see here in slot 4 and slot 5, that means magic resistance and physical resistance that can go up to 40%. Like all of these stats can go up to 40% once you, like if you have it on a A grade gear and you bring it to plus 20. Otherwise, it's slightly lower. I think for plus 12 is around 55 or something more. But no, sorry, not 55, 20, 25 or something more. That would be already enough. If it works the way I was saying before, like for Magic Pierce, that's more than enough because as we saw, Karaka only had 25% physical resistance, so more than enough for most of the tanks in the game. But yeah. So for supports, I almost always, except in some cases, went for the usual combo magic resistance and physical resistance to have them tank a little bit more and survive so that they can use their skills and buff the allies. For DPSs, I went with crit damage in slot 4 because that's the only stat that can actually increase the damage. There are units that do not really crit, so at that point, if effect hit works some way, that could be an option. Otherwise, effect resistance also makes sense. But for most of the DPS units, I always used crit damage. There are units that can get can work well with crit rate. So for those, I explicitly used the crit rate one. There are other DPS that just work probably better with physical and magic pierce due to the fact that they might have already a lot of crit built in their kit, or just in general they have no other ways of reducing the enemy magic or physical resistance. So yeah, that's pretty much the general reasoning, but now let's go into more details. So for BAM, is a support unit, so it doesn't really need attack. I set it as nice to have. Magic and physical resistances, as I said, is a support, it needs to survive, but they are rare, and for the reason before that resources are scarce, this is just a nice to have, not a mandatory thing. What's recommended to level up a little bit is defense and HP. That will boost the survivability quite a bit. But yeah, other than that, that's all for BAM. For Cheonwa, the Yellow Knight, This guy is supposedly a DPS, but you don't really need to like I said, attack, crit damage, and physical pierce as recommended. This guy has a lot of crit rate built in the kit, so crit damage makes total sense. Physical pierce makes also sense because it doesn't have ways to reduce physical resistance a lot. It can decrease defense, which also makes it good to have some physical pierce in here, but I wouldn't use resources on this kind of units because this guy is only good in boss fights, and even then he's not a DPS. So I don't know. I wouldn't invest in him overall. Then there is Eden, SSR Plus. If you want to build him, attack for sure is a good choice. Defense and HP are not that relevant because he's a ranged unit, so he can still manage to survive somehow. He's a magic dealing unit, so magic pierce, and crit damage is really good in general on all DPSs. As I said before, we have no other choices really. So yeah. Evan, another support, is really similar to Bam. It just needs to survive to cast his ultimate. So also in this case, magic and physical resistance for slot 4 and 5. And same logic as before. Since we have scarce resources in this case, it's best to just invest in defense and HP a little bit and just forget about the others. Regarding Gosang, she's an R unit that you can take to SSR, but she will be replaced by Evan, and you're not really going to run multiple yellow teams in theory, so you can just ignore her in general. She's still a support, so the same logic applies, but yeah, nothing too crazy. Nothing. I wouldn't go invest in her at all. Then we have another unit that's a lot more situational than Gosang, and this is Gray. She's an SR unit that you can take to SSR, and she's only used for one thing, and that thing is the fear she can inflict on her passive, which is up to 8 seconds. And this is a really good CC. I don't know if this CC is impacted by effect hit chance. If it was, then definitely slot 4 would be effect hit. But since we do not know, we have no idea how it exactly works. The only thing I noticed is that if she dies from the hit from the opponent, she will not apply fear, so she needs at least to survive one hit, and that's why I set slot 2 and slot 3 as recommended, so that she can survive that initial burst and apply the fear. I don't know if that was because I didn't have a lot of effect hit, actually 0 because she has no ignition weapon, but still. I don't know if having higher effect hit will impact her fear. If it does, as I said, sure, good stat for slot 4. Otherwise, I don't know. I think just improving her resistances so she can survive the initial hit and apply fear, that's already enough. Then we move on to the big chicken, Getang. This guy is a DPS, so again, attack is mandatory. Crit damage and crit rate. He has some mechanics built around crit rate, so maxing it out is nice. And yeah, defense and HP, since his ranged unit, are lower priority. Hats. This guy, as I said before, is a squishy unit and he needs to go in close range to fight, so boosting defense and HP is pretty much mandatory if you want him to survive at all. Boosting the crit rate is also helpful because his passive gives him HP every time he crits, and with the close to 40% you can get in this lot from this lot alone, that really boosts his lifesteal and makes him a good unit in PvP. Still, I don't think that's enough for adventure, but in PvP it could be a good unit if you already have an ATS invested from a past mistake like I do. So yeah. Then the next one in the list is Rack. Rack is a little bit different from other tanks. As in other tanks, I usually give them both magic resistance and physical resistance, but this guy already has built in the kit an increase of like 80% to his physical and magic resistance, so giving him 40% would be overkill. Unless you're against opponents that can shred the resistance, okay, obviously, but this is more like in general and not specific for certain encounters that might not even happen. So with Rack, what you do at that point, since you already have magic and physical resistance, you just get crit damage reduction. So every time they crit on you, they deal 40% less damage, which is okay, it's fine. And you also get crit rate resistance. This one is just playing against the crit damage reduction, but still it's good because crit, even though you can reduce their damage, they still deal more damage than the normal hits. So reducing the number of crits that the opponents do is still good. You could go with physical resistance there. That's totally viable. Like you could go with magic resistance. So when the skill is not up, you still get a good magic and physical resistance percentages. But I think this is more reliable and optimal overall. Then we have Shibisu. This guy, I don't know, is only used in boss fights, and in there, units already have good enough survivability, but still, since he needs to be alive to cast his ultimate, I think it makes sense to just boost his survivability a little bit. Still not a high priority unit in general, so prioritize other units. Vespa, she's an okay stall tank, nothing too good, unfortunately, so the yellow element is kind of lacking in that aspect, unfortunately. She can still work quite well, so I would boost the defense and HP of this unit so that you can get more HP recovery from her passive, and just in general make her survive a little bit longer. Same thing, just increase magic resistance or physical resistance so she can survive more, and you don't really care too much about the attack. But it's a nice thing to have, so sure. Then we have Wangnan and Yeon. I think those two are pretty similar. Like they are both magic damage dealers, and they scale off of attack, obviously, like every single DPS and most of the skills in this game scale off of attack. They are both ranged, so you don't need high defenses, but they're obviously nice to have as a last addition. Then let me see. Okay, this is pretty much all for the yellow element, so let's go to the next one, which is the purple one. The first unit in the purple tree is Endorsi. Now I will also open the tab of the unit I'm talking about just for reference. And Endorsi here, she is supposedly a DPS unit, so you would run like damage dealing stats, but since this unit we will see in following videos, but I didn't, like I said, not to upgrade her exclusive equipment, I still see no real use to this unit. I mean, all she does, and she does really well, and for which the tier in the tier list is quite high, she can do at zero investment, she can do a full investment, and it will almost always be the exact same. She will just go in, distract the enemies, group them up, buy 1 or 2 seconds to your carry, and die. That's all she needs to do. And she can do it at zero investment really well. So in general, I wouldn't invest in her. And so here, if you ever reach a point where you actually unlock the carrier for this unit, then by any means just follow the usual boost the attack, boost the crit damage, boost the physical pierce, and that's it. But yeah, I wouldn't overinvest in her. The next unit in the list is Ghost. This guy, I think it's actually a good tank. He has a lot of HP recovery built in. He can get crazy amounts of magic resistance. Also, the natural one, I think it's pretty high. No, okay, the natural one is pretty low, but he gets a lot of it from his skill, which is this one. He can get 80% magic resistance at level 5, and that's really a lot. And also gets other things like he shreds the enemy magic resistance, which is really cool. And every time he receives a crit, he recovers HP. This is really good. And you want to avoid having substats that reduce the critical, like that increase the crit rate resistance of this unit, because you want to be crit against. Like you want people to hit you. And yeah, so one of the most important stats for him is also crit damage reduction for obvious reasons. This guy wants to receive a lot of hits and to be healed from them. So if you reduce the damage, it will mean that he gets healed more. And as we saw from this skill, he gets magic resistance in the kit, so you don't really need the 40% magic resistance that will go in slot 4, which is perfect. You can just get the 40 physical resistance that comes from slot 5. That's really good. Then obviously, before these like really specific stats, you should always build up defense and HP. They are just overall the best bang for your buck. Like you get the main stats here can go up to more than 80%. So attack, defense, and HP, which is really crazy numbers. And those are always a better investment than the specific ones you get from slot 4 and slot 5. The only exceptions are obviously ranged damage dealing units. But yeah, even then, attack is a priority over slot 4 and slot 5. Then next up in the list is Gustang, and this guy is the newly released SSR Plus unit, and is a support, but he also kind of deals damage, not that much. His skill that summons the patrol bots is really strange. He can summon units that have 80% of his own stats, meaning you can get like additional 2.4 Gustangs in terms of stat. And I don't know. This guy, supposedly in his kit, he can deal some damage. Not that much from this skill, but just from the patrol bots, they can deal quite the amount of damage. So attack is not bad. Also, it increases the heals he does, meaning your units can survive longer because his per second heal is really high. And so attack, defense, and HP are really good stats. Magic resistance for survivability, that's also good. In here, I put Magic Pierce because it deals magic damage and his bots could deal damage. Still, I think it's better to just go for physical resistance, and I will probably change this value soon. But I think since they gave him a whole skill just built towards damage, I think it's worth a shot. But I will probably change it to physical resistance, just know it. Then Joaquin is next up in the list, and this guy is one of the units I have more investment in. And close range fighters have obviously a weakness, which is they need to survive long enough. This guy is good because he has a lot of lifesteal and a teleport that makes him really hard to hit. But the problem is that he needs to get to the point where he can actually use them. And at high deficits is difficult. So I focused more on maxing his HP percentage piece. Unfortunately, I didn't get a really good roll. It could have been a lot better, especially the attack one. 2.5 means that I got the 1%, the 1.5%. Really bad. It could have been a 2.5% from the start, but whatever. It's still fine. And then I focused on taking his attack piece to plus 16. This one is a really terrible one. As you can see, it gives me nothing. Defense, really low, by the way. Magic resistance, and just low amount of physical pierce. But unfortunately, I needed the main stat in this case, and I didn't care too much about the substats. And Joaquin also can make use of crit damage, and that's also the piece I have here. Good rate, good roll on the critical hit rate here. 4.5 is the maximum, but unfortunately it never hit it. It just hit useless things like crit hit resistance and defense. Not the end of the world, but I would have rather hit just kept on buffing critical hit rate. The other piece is this. What's the slot 5 is like the hands. Yeah, okay. So in this case, it's the ring from Runda's ring. It doesn't really matter which set effect it is. But this one had good substats. It had high accuracy. I think now it hit like 9 plus 6 or something like that, or 12 plus 3, fortunately. But yeah, it also had high evasion. So I was like, okay, cool. Sounds like a nice piece. I'll just upgrade it. And the main stat is physical pierce in this case. That's also what I think is best on him. I don't think he needs that much crit rate. He already has 59% just from the substats, and getting more is probably just overkill in general. And yeah, I think crit rate, it's already something that majority of the units will have, either from their exclusive equipment. In this case, it gets lifesteal, but there are a lot of carries with crit rate in their kit. So, and you already have a starting amount of crit hit rate. So it's not that important. You could get probably to 100% crit hit rate, but I don't know. I feel like having a stat that's more complementary or that you don't get a lot of is better. And since you can already reach, like in my case, 60% crit hit rate just from the substats alone, to me that's already good enough. And then I can focus on having additional physical pierce in my stats that, as I said before, still not clear how it works. Hopefully just a plain increase in damage, or hopefully can reduce the enemy resistance below 0 just for the hit, or I don't know. But yeah, that's what I'm going for on Joaquin and what I recommend people level up first. Karaka is next up on the list, and this guy, like most tanks, will have, let's see here, a focus on the defensive pieces, so HP and defense. Then you can build, okay, in this case I didn't find magic resistance and a physical resistance piece. Also this one, okay, no, this one is physical resistance. I didn't find the magic resistance one. Still, yeah, the magic resistance is pretty low, and it could use an increase. You don't want to increase it higher than like 70% more or less, because this guy already gets 30% physical damage and magic damage reduction. So you don't really, it's worded weirdly. I mean, it doesn't say resistance, but still it says increase physical damage and magic damage reduction. So to me, that would mean it gets additional magic resistance and physical resistance. But it could even be just a plain 30% damage reduced from the already reduced damage. I don't know. If it's the case that it just increases your magic and physical resistance, then you want to get up to 70% on both of them, and then you could cap it out with the exclusive equipment. So for the magic resistance, no problem. For physical resistance, I'm already nearing the 70% and I only have this piece at +8. So you might get enough if you just get physical resistance substats, and at that point you could go for like crit rate resistance over the physical resistance stat. But it's just for you guys to also consider based on which other roles you have on your gear. And then lastly, the attack piece, not really that important. And yeah. Okay, next up in the list. This video, guys, will be really long because as you saw, I'm just trying to explain as much as I can. So please bear with me and I hope I can provide enough information for all of you guys. Kunagero, this guy, usual setup for the supports. It doesn't have anything strange. He could get use of the effect hit if that affected his Mambaronde. I have no idea how to pronounce this, but I don't know if the swallowing of the enemy will be impacted by effect hit resistance or not. I have no idea. I also don't know at this point if his ultimate just needs to hit or not for the paralyze to happen and just for the defense decrease to be applied. I have no idea. So hopefully it's not affected by the effective chance. Otherwise, the stat you would look for in the slot 4 would be effect hit. Otherwise, magic resistance and physical resistance as usual to have him survive a little bit longer. Kiseya, she is a close range unit, so she will also get use that defense and HP increase, but she's a DPS, so she needs obviously mandatory attack, and she's also a unit that can use the crit rate because she has skills that have additional buffs if the attack results in a critical hit. She already has plenty of critical hit in her kit, but especially like from her exclusive equipment, she gets a 30% for that skill. Plus, you already get high enough crit rate, like 30% base. I have no carrier, obviously, because I don't have the +20 in the exclusive equipment. But even then, it's 60% on the blue arc skill. You can get it to 100% no problem with the addition of this slot 5 piece, and then you will also get additional crits on her other skills. You get a 30% additional from her ultimate, so you would get to 100% most of the time on all your skills, and 130% on the blue arc one here, blue lightning arc. So I think crit rate is valuable. I wouldn't go probably to +20, and it could be swapped for the physical peers in the future, but yeah. Lurker, again, this guy is really bad, so I wouldn't invest in him, but if I were to, he's a magic damage dealer. I don't have him either. Yeah, I don't have him, so let's open him up here. Where is he? Here, not obtained. So this guy, I don't know. I would just go with Magic Pierce because he's a magic damage dealer. And as usual, boost the attack piece first, then crit damage Magic Pierce, and lastly, defense and HP. The reason why, even though he's a close range unit, I think it is close range. I don't know why it's ranged here. No, okay, it's probably range. I don't know. I've not been using him. I kind of remembered him dashing against me, but I think I was mistaken. Yeah. Okay, he's a ranged unit, so you don't need defense and HP for him to survive. It's fine. Then next up in the list is Data Machine. She's a ranged DPS, so you want her attack high, her crit and her crit damage and magic pierce as high as possible. She doesn't have any kind of interaction with crits, so I would go for the magic pierce over the crit rate.
That's right.
Then we have Narai, however we can call her. She's a support. Again, same thing that can be said for others. The priority is to have her survive, so defense and HP are recommended, and magic resistance and physical resistance are also good. Prince, this guy is kind of bad. He just goes straight to the enemy and dies. He's one of the guys that I do not recommend Magic Pierce on, even though he's a magic dealing unit, just because he already has plenty of ways to decrease the enemy magic resistance. So I would still say go for if you want to build him, because I would not recommend building him, but whatever. You would go with crit rate and crit damage in this case, as nice to have stats. The mandatory ones are just attack and then recommended defense and HP because he's close range, so he could die pretty quickly. Next up on the list, Rachel. In this case, I don't think I did any kind of Easter egg. Yeah, I didn't put everything to overkill. I should have, but yeah. This unit is a mix between close range, mid range, and long range. I don't know. She just go more or less in the middle of the fight, but then she's still ranged. So I don't know. I would still boost her defense and HP so that she can survive. She can survive longer enough to just use her ultimate and deal some damage and group enemies up. But even then, I don't know. I wouldn't use her as a sub DPS because of how her skill works. She will just link to the highest defense unit, which will be your main carry. If you have him in the slot that's 20 levels higher than all the others, which that's usually the case. So this skill would just target them, and with her being some sort of close to mid-range, she would still get hit and redirect part of that damage to your main DPS, which is not something you really want to see. If she doesn't take any big hits, is not a big problem because Joaquin, that's most likely the main DPS you will have in the purple team, has a lot of life still, so he can cope with it without any problems, but still, I don't know. I would not suggest building this girl up unless you want to use her as a main DPS. But come on, guys, it's Rachel, please avoid her, and that's it. Okay, let's move on to the next element, and let's start with Amigo charts. So this guy is a tank, but unfortunately he suffers from the fact that he doesn't have taunts or provokes, so he cannot use the defense set from the ignition weapon. So I don't know. On paper, it's really, really good because his barriers are strong. 160% of attack is nothing crazy, but 10% of his max HP is really, really good. So that would make a great barrier that lasts 4 seconds. Yeah, because 2 plus 2, yeah, 4 seconds. And also heals him every time it's created. Is really good. He has lifesteal. You can put him, well, we will see later which sets to place on each unit, but on paper is good. Unfortunately, he has no way to draw aggro, and you would also need to build accuracy on him for the passive to proc. Actually, that might not be needed because here says upon using his basic attack. there is no mentioning of hitting. So I think we can try it real quick in the arena simulation. Sorry guys if I'm making also this kind of deviation from the script or just what I was planning to do. But yeah, just go with I don't know if I can change the way that a certain, let me see, if there is an enemy with high evasion, I could use, okay, where is this guy? This guy. No, not in my team. Ah, the enemy team. This guy has a lot of evasion, and I can just decrease the level of my unit a little bit. No, okay, I'm way too weak now. Just a little bit more. No, even more. Like, let's go 908 or whatever. Okay, this makes a lot more sense. So let's see, once I miss the hit, what happens? I don't know if I can actually see the barrier being generated, if there is any kind of pop-up. But if you do not need accuracy, great. If you do, that's obviously a lot more investment. Miss? I think in that miss there was no barrier being created. Yeah, I see no barriers, and I'm missing almost all my hits, so I think you do need accuracy. Like, look, no barrier. Okay, now yes, because I hit it, but then miss, miss. And that one was not a basic attack, so it didn't work. Okay. Okay, finally won, but looks like you cannot generate a shield if you do not hit. So you need the accuracy on him, which is obviously higher investment. We'll go over it in the report tab, but not worth it at that point in my opinion. The only thing is that Red doesn't have a tank. Other than him, you could use the pillow girl, I don't remember her name, this one, Hacks, but she's really good against physical damage dealers. She has no provoke, which is a really a downside. So, I don't know. Between her and Amigo Charts, I think Amigo Charts is better, but you need a lot more investment. That being said, let's move on to the next unit, which is Anak. She's good only in PvP, I would say. In Adventure, you don't really use her. And she's a close range unit, so she also needs defense and HP to survive. I marked it as mandatory, but I'm not that sure because basically she's more like some sort of fighter that targets the highest attack enemy unit. So you might not need that much survivability, but it could help because she doesn't have a lot of sustain built in her kit. She just have the passive here that can ignore damage. But I don't know, it's not as frequent as like every 6 seconds when you have her at level 5. So I don't know. Wouldn't recommend this unit, but in general, she's just some sort of damage dealer, more of a niche damage dealer. So yeah, the usual, just defense, HP, recommended attack, and then since she's not a main DPS, she's just a sub DPS at max. Crit damage and physical pierce are just nice to have stats. And there is Happle. Happle has another issue, more or less similar to Endorsey. She's not going to get to exclusive equipment level 3, so plus 20, because this is just plain useless. I mean, it's increasing the accuracy of the red element allies by additional 25%. She's already increasing it by 80%. So getting it to 105 really means nothing, because 80% increase is already enough for your units to hit everything, even at a high disadvantage. Actually, you don't even need it, but yeah. She's used only for her special skill, which is hacking. She just decreases the enemy evasion by 80%. So even more so, you don't need the additional accuracy. So you don't want to spend resources to level up her exclusive equipment and get it to plus 20 just to unlock the ignition weapon. So again, she's the same as other supports, and I will also go ahead and just change the color here because it doesn't make any sense. I will align it with the other supports. It's not mandatory to have defense and HP on her. Actually, is not even. I will use the same colors as Endorsi because she's just there for boss fights. She's not going to take a lot of hits, and she will do her job regardless, and you will not get to the ignition weapon anyway. Okay, so that's it for her as well, and let's go to our Craptor here. This guy is just a ranged damage dealer, a physical one, so you want physical pierce in slot 5. You want to max his attack. You don't really care too much about defense and HP. He's a ranged unit, so that's fine. Yeah, pretty much that. This is the main DPS you want to use in the red team. If you don't have Viol at 3 green stars, like I don't, this guy is the next unit I'm going to max, by the way, because I feel like my red team, even though I have a maxed out Evankel, like a fully duped Evankel, I still feel like my red team is the weakest one. So I will go ahead and take this guy at least to 3 red, and then give him the L set. So this guy is better than a Craptor if you get him to 3 green already. And so if you don't have him, go ahead with a Craptor, but know that you might have to replace him sooner or later. That's also why I didn't invest anything in him. Well, the main reason is because I have Evankel, obviously, but still, he is the best unit you can use for the red team. And now that you can use purple and yellow for floor 16 onwards until floor 21, you don't really need to invest in like a unit like Warion or a Craptor early on. And by the time you will need the third unit, you will most likely already have an SSR plus leveled up, or at least VO to 3 red, now that there is also the addition of the black market. So in general, our Craptor is objectively the best red SSR carry, but obviously taking everything I just said into account, you don't really need to invest in him. So yeah, now we are up to Evankel here. She's similar to the units like the other close range damage dealing units. It's especially important to level up her HP and also defense, but HP mostly because she has a way to recover percentage HP. So the more you have, the more she recovers. Defense obviously is also important because you need to reduce the amount of damage she takes, otherwise that high number of HP will mean nothing. But still, she's one of the units that require high investments, more or less like Joaquin. In fact, they have the same priorities here. And Evankel, she needs high dupes. We will see it in another video, but still, it's extremely important until you have her at full rainbow to max the defensive stats, because she will die, unfortunately. So yeah. That's pretty much all. Like they are like usual. You will see a lot of patterns here. Like for support, there's a certain pattern. For ranged damage dealing units, there is another one, and for close range damage dealing units, another. Tanks are a little bit more varied because they don't have like they have different requirements, but in general, yeah, that's pretty much it. Evankel, I also went for Magic Pierce instead of crit hit rate, mainly because she already has 10% crit hit rate from her exclusive equipment, and I think the number here is already quite high. It's 68%. So even if I were to add 40%, I would get to 108. So quite high and overkill. So same reasoning as other units. We already get a lot of crit hit rate by default. We can get a lot of it from substats. And yeah, I don't feel like you really need that additional crit hit rate in the main stat here. Secondary stat, sure, great, but not the main stat. Okay, then moving on to the next one, Hansung. Where is this guy? Red, here. So, Hansung Yu. This guy, he's been buffed, and on paper, he seems really good. I think this guy can deal a lot of damage. He can decrease the magic resistance of the opponents by 40% at level 5, yeah. So that's a really nice addition. But he has a lot of crit built in, so you don't need to go for crit. You can go for Magic Pierce that nicely complements his magic resistance reduction that he already has. But I cannot tell, guys, if this guy is actually worth it or not. He might be. His kit seems solid, but for some reason I've never seen him being a threat, even when I had him against in the adventure. So I don't think this guy is really that good. But he could be. So in case you just want to try him out, or you feel like he's actually really good, okay, could be. It's the usual priority as all the other ranged damage dealing units. So attack is the mandatory stat, crit damage and magic pierce are recommended, and defense and HP are nice to have. Okay, moving on to Warion. She's one of the most controversial units we have because a lot of people love her, say she's a great DPS, but she is until floor like 23 or so, and after that she just gets destroyed, and even if you manage to make her survive, she will just deal little to no damage. Even then, she's a good unit, she's great against bosses, she's one of the ways that Evankel has to target the backline, and she's a really nice support, but she's not a main DPS. That's the main message that I wanted you to get. So, since she's not a main DPS, attack is a nice to have stat, is not a mandatory one. Defense and HP become mandatory because she can really die pretty quickly. And then magic resistance and physical resistance because we are using her for her support capabilities. So we want her to stay alive, provide a swiftness buff to our team, crit rate increase to our team. So she's good as a support, but we need her to do just that. That's why we are not going for crit damage or crit rate or physical pierce. Just magic resistance and physical resistance. Then the next one is this guy, Michael, I don't know. Is good in adventure when you have him like in the opposing team. He's really good. He can destroy one or two of your units. But for you to use him, really not worth it. But even then, if you really want to use him as an assassin because you feel like he's a good unit and there is someone in the opposing team you want to get rid of, in one go. Not really going to happen in Adventure. Maybe in PvP. In PvP it could be a viable option. But then it's more or less the same priority as the other close range damage dealers. The only difference is that defense and HP on him are not that relevant because he's an assassin. It will just go ahead and kill one unit and then who cares what happens to him, pretty much. So that's the reason why he has a priority that's similar to a ranged damage dealer, such as the next one, which is Viol, we just mentioned before. So this guy has really high survivability with his exclusive achievement level 4, and he's been buffed recently, and he can combo really well with the health set. So attack is a mandatory stat as every ranged damage dealing unit. He is a magic damage dealer, so you have to increase his magic pierce. You don't really get anything useful with the crit rate increase. It doesn't have anything that just scale off of that. So yeah, nothing too important there. I would even say that attack percentage is not too important on him. Maybe it could be lowered to recommended, just because he already has attack damage buff on his kit. It could get up to 80% at 3 red, which I recommend going for. So he gets an 80% from there, plus an 80% from the gear. It makes it less valuable, but still, it's really a great addition. Because that would also be the case for Joaquin. He gets crazy amounts of increased attack, I think 300% after 5 people died, or something like that. So also Joaquin, you could make the case that he doesn't need it, but yeah, it's still an important stat, so yeah, let's keep it mandatory. So again, he doesn't need any crit rate for his skill to proc, so I would go for Magic Pierce. As we can see, crit rate, even on this unit, doesn't have anything at all. It just has the basic gear here without any level up. That just gives him 13%. It's actually pretty high, but you can get up to, I think, 19% for a plus 5 piece. So we'll get to 38 or so crit hit rate by default. And on top of that, you can just get it rolled in some substats, and you should easily get to 50% without too many problems, maybe even 60%. And then you get the additional crit hit rate from Warion, which usually is in every single red team. So seems fine to me not to build crit hit rate on him. Then we have Xiaxia or Xiaxia, and she is just another support. So the usual, just runner for survivability. She just needs to stay alive, and that's all. The next one, I will try to speed it up, guys, because I just noticed we are over 1 hour and 10. So I will just speed it up a little bit, and I will also add the timestamps so that you can navigate this video a little bit better. So here we have Yellowy, and she is just similar to Endorsey and Apple. You most likely will not unlock her carrier at all, but even if you were to do it, I wouldn't upgrade anything because her real value comes from her passive. So once you have her at 3 red, sorry, she will just provide 40% crit hit rate to your highest attack unit and 40 attack speed to them for 15 seconds. That's all she needs to do. And so you don't need to invest in her at all. And you will probably not even use her in most teams, but she's there. She could be useful at times. Okay, that was all for the red team. Now let's move on to the blue team, and let's try to keep it a little bit quicker. So again, Blanc, she's the new support unit for the blue team. Again, as most other support units, just focus on survivability, and we don't care too much about attack. Then we have Blarode. This guy is also some sort of sub DPS that's close range, and for him you want to maximize attack, you want him to have crit rate and crit damage. The reason why you want crit rate and not penetration is because his main goal is to grab a unit. This unit will most likely be isolated, so they will already have physical and magic resistance to 0. So you don't need that stat, unless we will find out in the future that's just plain increase in damage, blah blah blah. If that's the case, then sure, let's go for physical pierce. But since we are assuming, or I am assuming, this will decrease the enemy physical magic resistance, in that case, that stat is pretty much useless on him for the purpose of deleting one unit. So you just want an higher crit rate to deal as much damage as possible. He also doesn't really need too many defensive stats, mainly because his goal is not to stay in the fight long and survive, it's just to immediately destroy one unit, and that's it. The next unit in the list is Data Machine. She's one of the best stall tanks in the game, but she's not like other tanks. She's not reliant on stats to survive, so you don't need physical resistance or magic resistance or any kind of damage reduction, because her tankiness just comes from the fact that she is invincible for at least 10 seconds. So you can basically give her whatever you want. You can build her more towards damage, but I feel like that's only applicable for really high dupes data machine. Otherwise, you could just go with no stats at all, like I have here, or you could focus a little bit more on offensive stats to see if she can at times kill one red enemy unit. But yeah, overall, you don't really need to invest too much in her for her to work. Next up in the list is Hatsling. This guy is one of the few, if not the only, ranged unit in the blue team. Ranged DPS, because obviously we have two supports that are also ranged, but everyone else is close range. So this one is the only ranged unit in the blue team, which makes him quite valuable in my opinion, but unfortunately is not too good. He's fine, he can work, but I wouldn't overinvest in him. But again, as most ranged units, the priority is attack, then crit and magic pierce, because this one is a magic damage dealer. He doesn't really have anything in his kit that scales of crit rate, so for the same reasons as below, as previously, that is, you can get a lot of crit rate by default. It's best just to go for the magic pierce stat in the slot 5. Then we have the first tank, official tank for the blue element, and that is Horyang. This guy has a provoke in his kit, so it could be valuable with the new defense ignition weapon set. I have not tested him, but I think it could be quite good. Unfortunately for him, this element already has data machine. This guy is a provoke and has a lot of shielding capabilities, but again, this element also has Hurek, so he can provide the shields, and data machine can just stay there and survive. So I don't really think this guy has a spot in this element, or in any team for that matter. But still, if you wanted to give him a try, definitely focus on defense and HP. Then give him magic resistance and physical resistance, because in his kit he just has shields, and that's pretty much all. No, okay, just kidding. This guy gains physical and magic resistance already, and quite high amount. So sorry guys, I'm just going to change it to crit damage reduction, and this one to crit rate resistance. Okay, sorry guys, I didn't have a too deep of a look on this guy, but yeah, seems fine to me. We can just go with crit damage reduction and crit rate resistance for him, and sounds like a good character. Then next on the list we have the best main DPS for the blue element, and that is Kunran. So in this case again, he's a close range character, but he has higher survivability than other units. So you probably don't even need to invest that much in this. So I would just change the colors again and put these two to nice to have, because I feel like his survivability is already good enough. Maybe he could use HP with a little bit more priority than defense, but nothing too important. He's a magic damage dealer, so obviously go with magic pierce. And then crit damage, as it's the only offensive stat you get in slot 4. Then next up on the list we have Kurdan. This guy on paper is good. He has a silence, he can remove energy from the opponents, and he can silence. So overall, it seems good. It could be okay to give him a try. He also has a lot of physical and magic resistance. Just by default, he gets 40% physical resistance and 40% magic resistance, which is further increased by his exclusive equipment, taking it to 60% physical resistance and 50% magic resistance. Meaning that with the addition of magic and physical resistance here from these two slots, it will get to 100% physical damage resistance and 90% magic damage resistance, which is really good. Well, actually, it will get way more than that. In fact, I'm not even that certain we want to run both magic and physical resistance, because already from the gear you get like, okay, in this case I don't think I have a gear here on him, but yeah, just with these piece here we would get okay, maybe I can just equip this one and then we'll see a little bit more. Yeah, it gets physical resistance and magic resistance here. So his physical resistance will just already go to, it's already at 24%. It can get easily to 40%. So you don't really need physical resistance, and you could swap it out for something else like crit rate resistance. So I will do just that. Okay, good. It's also good that I'm making this video, at least I can make some corrections while I go through every unit one by one. But yeah, magic resistance still valuable because it starts at 50%. You will get around 15 or so here, so you get to 65%. You add 40%, you are at 100% magic resistance, which is quite nice. Next in the list is Leroro. This guy is a good support, but is not that used because it mainly debuffs the enemies and provides your team with the blue element attack buff. That's the main feature he can offer. He can also just decrease the defense of the opponents and their swiftness. Also some crowd control, but I think Blanc is way better than him in any case, so it's not that used. It could be also that you're running both supports, so Blanc and him, but yeah, it still is good. If you want to build him, it's not a bad choice, but I wouldn't overinvest. Again, like in most units, you don't want to overinvest because we don't have that many resources to spare. But in general, same thing as all the other supports, you just need to go for defensive stats to make him survive. Next is Novik. This guy was released recently, and I think that other than one boss fight, this guy has not been used. You cannot really use him. He's the squishiest tank in the game. It just goes in and dies. You could try to run him with defense and HP percent, uh, maxed out more or less with your ignition weapon, but he also has the problem that he needs a lot of accuracy for his skill to hit, so he can blind the enemies, silence them, etc. And he doesn't have a provoke, so you can use the defense set on him. So overall, I don't really recommend this guy. But again, if you want to build him, just go for the uh, defensive stats. Do not build physical resistance. Again, this one was not edited on my side because you already get the physical resistance from his ultimate and also from the stacks he has on the passive. So you only want magic resistance, and here go with the crit rate resistance instead. Okay. Next in the list is this guy, Quattro, I don't know. This one is a close range damage dealer, but again, uh, is not too good. He has the advantage of having like AoE damage, but even then is not that worth it. And in this element, you already have a lot of better units that are also close range, so I wouldn't invest resources on him. But if you wanted, again, he's a close range damage dealer. You want to increase his attack, you want to increase his survivability, and that's all. But uh, I didn't put anything mandatory. I could even put everything nice to have because in general I think this guy is just not worth the investment. I could even say overkill, but yeah. Quant, he's kind of a weird guy. He has a lot of evasion and he can sometimes deal a lot of damage to single target, but I don't know. I don't think there is any space for this guy in any team. He could be good because he can decrease the opponent accuracy and increase his own evasion. You could get him to a point where he can dodge reliably most of the hits, but even then, not sure he's worth the investment. Especially because when you are against the opponents that are way over leveled, chances are they will have so much accuracy and you will have so little evasion that it won't really matter. I mean, probably he won't get hit as much, but he just needs one hit and he's dead. So I don't think is that reliable. Evasion is not a good start in my opinion. It can work at times. Uh, there is some RNG with coming with it, so you can just auto progress through a stage, and if you are at a certain point, you will be lucky enough that you will dodge the critical hits that would otherwise kill you, and then you can pass the stage. But I wouldn't rely on a unit that relies on evasion. So that being said, again, close range unit, you want attack, defense, and HP so that he can survive the hits that he's going to receive. And then he's supposedly an assassin, so you want also to increase his damage with physical pierce and crit damage. Next up is Urek. This guy is good, but I feel like he needs a lot of dupes for him to really shine. Even at 3 red, I feel like Kun Ran uh, and my Quran is not even a full rainbow, but I still feel like my Kun Ran is better than him. Sure, he has more investment in the attack one, but and I didn't invest in defense piece for Urek yet. I probably should because I find it that a lot of times the battle starts and Urek dies. Even though he's at 3 red, Even though I gave him the equipment already. Let me check. Yeah, everything is at +5. Here, I didn't invest in defense one. I should probably. I didn't in the attack one. I probably should. The HP one, maybe take it to +12 or +16. But I think this guy is actually squishier than I thought. I should probably take him to at least 4 orange, but even then I'm not certain how much that will actually help. So yeah, in general, squishier than I thought. You need a lot of investment on this guy, pretty much the same as Evankel, but Evankel is pretty mandatory to have the full rainbow. This guy can probably get away with 4 orange, but still, he's a damage dealer. You need attack, you need defense, you need HP. Then, like a nice icing on the cake is just crit damage and physical pierce. That's pretty much all. Yeah. Okay, then finally we finished the blue element. We can move on to the green one. And for the green one, let's go with Child and Dorsey. She's a close range damage dealer again, so she needs some sort of survivability. She has lifesteal, so she's not too bad at surviving, but the problem is that when you're running high deficits, the enemies will just destroy you in 1 or 2 hits. And if you are not running an additional DPS in your team, she will probably just die and the passive will never proc. Like she will not come back to life. So that's also something to take into account when considering using Child and Dorsey. But in general, as many other close range damage dealers, you want to prioritize attack and HP, and then obviously defense, crit damage, and physical pierce. She has defense reduction in her kit, well, mainly in her passive, and you don't really want to get to the point where you use that defense reduction. And yeah, she also has some blocks to the energy, but nothing that really requires crit rate to shine. So you're better off just going with physical pierce, since she has no source of it in the kit. Yeah, okay. Then next up in the list, Edin. This guy is pretty much useless. He's another evasion guy that relies on evasion. But even then, he's supposedly an assassin, but even when I faced him in the adventure mode, I never really had any problems with him. So I think he's pretty weak, so I wouldn't build him. But again, he's supposedly an assassin, so it's usually the same thing over and over again. So attack as a priority, defense and HP as your next one, because in this case you want him to survive a little bit. He's relying on evasion, but still in those cases it's best to have also additional defenses in case you get hit. Then crit damage and physical pierce for additional damage. But yeah, as I said, I wouldn't build him. Next one in the list is Laure, I have no idea how to call him. The sleepy guy. So he's close range damage dealer. At times he's also a little bit ranged, but is not really clear. So since he's close range for the most part, he will need some survivability from his defense and HP pieces. And the main priority will be attack, so that he can deal more damage, and also he will get some additional shield based off of his attack. So the more attack he has, the better as well. So yeah, that's pretty much all. And you want some magic pierce because he doesn't have any resistance shred in his kit. I don't think he has it in his exclusive equipment either. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you want some magic pierce, and it doesn't rely on crit hits, so you don't need the additional crit rate. Then next up in the list is another support, Lozelle. As the other ones, she just needs to survive. Even more so because for some reason they made her dangerously close range. So she will get hit a lot and she will die. So you need some kind of survivability. Maybe in this case it's even recommended to have magic resistance and physical resistance upgraded, but I don't think it will really matter. Next up is Misang. She's again another sort of assassin. She's here. She seems to be a fighter, but she's actually an assassin. She just go to an opponent at the beginning of the fight and stun them, and then she goes berserk, increasing her defense and stuff. So I don't know. I wouldn't really use her that much. I don't feel like she has any place in the green team, even though the green team is pretty weak if we take out the collab unit. But still, she is not someone I would invest in. And for her, just increase her attack and her defensive capabilities as most of the other units, because she seems to be like an assassin that just goes in and fights, but then you see the other skills and she's just built more towards longer and prolonged fights. So in that case, I would just go with higher resistances and maybe forget a little bit about the additional damage until later on. Then what else? Mule Love, the next one. So Love. This guy has the only problem that he's mostly single target, but even then he is a ranged unit. He can deal quite a good amount of damage, especially his summoned unit with his plus 30 can dish out really crazy damage because he will receive all the effects from this guy's passive that gives him a little bit of a AoE, but nothing much, and then will also increase his crit hit rate by quite a bit, and will also remove the issue with the accuracy. So not bad. Overall, I wouldn't suggest him like to run him with the crit rate because it gets crit rate, as we can see here, when he hits fewer than 3 targets. So that's already really good. And so crit damage is definitely a good thing to have. Physical pierce as well. You don't need too many resistances, just because he is a ranged unit, so he can survive quite well anyway. Next up is Rachel. She's similar to Mule Love, but she has a little bit more AoE. So let's go open her up here. Okay. So again, the same stats are valid here. She even more so has so much crit rate built in her kit that you're probably going to reach 100% even if you don't use anything else. Like she already has 45.5 for me, so that means once the fight starts it's already 55, and plus there is something else that gives it. Okay, no, this one is crit damage. I need to check where it is. Okay, here again, additional 30% once it's a crit, so from 55 to 85, and that's already more than enough. You don't need 40% from the ignition weapon here, so you can go with magic pierce without any second thought. And yeah, again, crit damage really important on her, since she has so much crit rate already. And yeah, that's all. You don't need that many defensive stats on her just because she has damage reduction when she uses her AoE heal, so pretty good survivability. And yeah, that's all for Rachel as well. Let's go to Shane or Shani or Shane. I have no idea how to pronounce her as well. So many weird names. But yeah, she is pretty much similar to Hats, She has invincibility in her ultimate, which is not bad. She gets a lot of crit rate, reason why you do not want to build her with crit rate, so this one was pretty much a mistake. Let's go with Magic Pierce, because she already gets like 8% from here. Then she also gets additional 10% with 3 stacks, so 30% here, so 38 additional. She already has quite a bit. With this one, could get to 38 or so, as we saw before, so plus other 8, 46 plus 30 is 76 or something like that. Plus in her kit, I'm pretty sure there is also something additional. She has the nice thing that she recovers HP whenever she deals a crit hit, but and that was also the reason why I probably put the crit rate there, but you don't really need it that much because let's see here, there is also additional crit hit rate increase here from her ultimate, which will max out at 40%. So you would lose out on all of those just to have a guaranteed 100% crit most of the time. Doesn't make that much sense. It's better to increase the magic pierce so that she deals more damage and then build up through her kit the 100% crit rate chance. Okay. Just a brief opinion on this unit. She's not too bad. She can work as a tank in PvP. She can work in adventure to just stall a little bit if you ever had full rainbow. Otherwise, nah, nothing too crazy. So if you ever had full rainbow, she could be worth investing a little bit. Do not exaggerate. Just enough for her to survive and give your team a little bit of time. She can also deal some nice damage, but nothing crazy. Then next unit is Yeon-hee. I think that's how you pronounce it, yeah. And she's also one of the collab units. She's not bad. She's listed as a support, but I'm pretty sure she could be more of a mage kind of thing. She has a 40% magic resistant shred plus the 40% she can get from the equipment, meaning that she can ignore 80% of the magic resistance of the opponent, which is not bad. And then what else does she get? She has invincibility, that's fine. She applies that state there. She has some crowd control, but nothing else. Let's see the exclusive equipment. Just let's her start her the battle with additional energy so she can cast the ultimate. Exclusive equipment level 4 is nice, but not mandatory. So it's like some sort of mage with some crowd control and some magic resistant shred. Nothing too great to use her as a support. I think she's more of a damage dealer unit that helps the green element, just shreds the enemy resistances and go ahead and destroy them. But again, since she is ranged, you don't need to overinvest in defense and HP. And since she is more of a damage dealing unit, in my opinion, I would go with crit damage and magic pierce and attack, obviously. Next up in the list is Yuri. She's another tank in this game that is not really a tank. She has no provokes skills, so she'll just stay there, generate some barriers, and reduce increase her own defense and reduce the swiftness of the enemies. Yes, but really not something that you would expect from a tank. She's more of like a bruiser character, so she deals some damage and she can tank a little bit, but in adventure she doesn't really work. It's more PvP-oriented character, I would say. Still, she's a tank, so I would go with defensive stats. If I were to build her, I would go with defense and HP in the ignition weapon, and I would go with magic resistance and physical resistance because she gets the additional defense, but she doesn't get any additional physic or magic resistances. So that would help her barriers also to last a little bit longer, so she can take advantage of the exclusive equipment effect that just regenerates HP when the barrier is active. So overall, she's okay, but I still cannot understand which kind of role she's supposed to fulfill. Alright, and here we are with the last unit in the game, and probably one of the strongest ones. This guy needs a lot of investment, but is definitely worth it. He is a fighter and a tank. He is a tank mainly because of his passive that allows him to survive at the very least 6 seconds. And you can also just use him as a DPS against the blue teams because his ultimate at stage 3 will just wipe the whole enemy team out if you have him at 3 red and it's well invested. So not mine. Mine is not really that invested. As you can see, my attack is pretty low, my attack piece, and I don't have a good physical piece, and I don't even have the crit damage piece here. So mine cannot wipe enemy teams, but still it can do a good job overall. So again, is a similar priority as the ranged characters, even though it's a close range one, mainly because, as I said, it doesn't really need survivability that much. He already has it in the kit, and for 6 seconds he's guaranteed to survive. So you can just focus on his damage and make it so that in those 6 seconds he will wipe and deal as much damage as possible. There is also the fact that even if he dies, he can still use his tier 3 ultimate with the level 4 exclusive equipment, which is crazy. If you have him built with crazy damage, that ultimate will really deal tons of damage. And that's all, guys, for the stats and the priorities. I hope this one was comprehensive enough, and sorry if I had to make some corrections. But yeah, I did it as best as I could, but I forgot to look too deeply into those characters that are not really relevant. Okay, next up is the tab. I promise, guys, I will keep it really, really short because this one is more easy to understand and I can go a lot quicker. And next up is the sets that are used on certain characters. And the usual rule or something that's usually done is the supportive characters, the one that actually support, like not just support role, but the actual support characters will get the Runda set, the HP set, so that they can shield the team, provide energy, and that's pretty much all that set does, which is really good. So characters like Bam, Evan, Gosang, Gray. Gray is not a support unit by any means. She is supposed to be a mage, but obviously she's only used for a fear, so she is categorized as a support unit. So for those units, HP set is the best one. Then there are the close range damage dealers. They will get the lifesteal set most of the time. That provides a heal when the character goes below a certain threshold of HP. Problem is, if the character gets one shot, that bonus is useless. But yeah, if your character is tanky enough, and it should be because we're focusing on defensive stats for close range characters, if he is tanky enough, that passive will be really, really good. Otherwise, you would just be better off having 2 pieces of lifesteal and 2 pieces of attack speed. So, that being said, ranged characters will focus more on the L set, so the attack speed set, because they are the ones that can avoid damage for 5 seconds most of the time and can keep it up quite reliably. And once they are not able to keep it up anymore, they are probably already dead. Because once the opposing team starts focusing on your ranged carries, they're dead. So it's fine to have that set on. Then the last set is the Myong Wall. I hope I said it correctly, which is the defense set. And this set is only used by characters that have a provoke in their kit, which are not many. Actually, I think there are just 3. Let's see, Ghost, Karaka, and the last guy is Oryang, right? Yeah, Oryang, and that's all. Yes. There are more provokes, but they are like on SR and R characters, so not really useful. So yeah, not much to be said there. It's a really good set only if you have provokes. Otherwise, pretty much useless. All right. So with that being said, let's see if there are any exceptions here in the list to the rule I just said, which are Gietang. This guy here is a ranged damage dealing unit, is the chicken. The fact is, I placed the lifesteal set, but even then, it doesn't really make sense because once you focus him, he's dead. So you're better off probably with the full attack speed set anyway, even though it doesn't really provide a lot of value, at least at the beginning. So I will just change it here. But you will use it mainly for the 50% attack increase because he already has way too much attack speed in his kit that the 20 attack speed will really mean nothing to him because this set here just gives 20 attack speed, but he already gets like 120 plus another like 80 or something, so it's really not useful. It's just a drop in the bucket or a drop in the sea. It's really not noticeable, but you will notice the 50% attack increase. So yeah, definitely still the best set. You don't really need attack lifesteal because once he's targeted, he's probably already dead, as most of the ranged units. So yeah, I would still go with the L set with him. So I just edited this one as well, and yeah, okay. Moving on, the other ones, nothing strange. Vespa is a little bit of a weird case. In fact, oh, okay, also hats, sorry. So for hats, is the full lifesteal set is good and is probably the best choice, but since the way his kit works is also relying on attack speed, and you cannot use a full attack speed set on a close range unit, I think the best choice would be to have 20% lifesteal and 20 attack speed on him, so the hybrid setup. Even then, the full lifesteal is not bad on him, it's fine, but yeah, just something to take into account if you still want to run hats for some reason. Also, Vespa is in a similar situation, meaning he can use the full lifesteal set, is definitely viable, especially because he has some kind of immortality, invincibility for a split second. So it's enough to proc the lifesteal set, but he also has a good CC after a certain number of hits, so he also benefits from the attack speed set. You could even run him with the HP set to provide shield to his party if you don't already have one in the front line. But still, I think for him or for her, I don't know if he is female or male, whatever, I think lifesteal and attack speed mix is the best choice. Everything else here is pretty normal. In Dorsey, I would use the HP set so that you have it in the front line or something like that. If you don't have it already. Otherwise, nothing. Because as I said, it's really difficult. You will unlock the set for her because she's pretty useless. I mean, she's useful, but she doesn't need investment to be useful. So it's pretty overkill to unlock it. But if you do, HP could be a good option. Ghost, definitely defense. Gustang, Gustang. I think like most supports, HP is the best way to build him, but it could even work with attack speed set if his patrol bots benefit from it. It's still not clear if they take the stats that that Gustang has at the moment, or if they take the stats that Gustang had when they were summoned. So I'm not sure. I don't know. It could be that's viable. I don't think so. If the patrol bots inherit the attack speed from him, maybe you could run something more defensive. But even then, I think just classic full HP set is good enough. Chances are also Kuna Gero will have it, so you don't want to place them both in the same row. And if you happen to do that quite often, then yes, you can consider giving Gustang a different one for some way or another. I mean, they could work. Then what else? What else is different? No, it's the same. It's the same. It's as usual. Usual. Rachel also probably the L set, not 100% sure. Probably Bergamot because she's some weird of kind of close range, mid range, not really clear. Maybe I would go with the lifesteal set for her. No, let's keep it attack speed, but yeah, it will depend. Uh, support with HP, normal, Blood with lifesteal, pretty fine as well. Data Machine is also a weird one. If she's not invested at all, then HP. If she has a lot of investment, then lifesteal could be viable because then she would regain a lot of HP. But again, once the 10 seconds are past, even if she is full life, she will probably just die again. So I'm not sure about the lifesteal here. I think HP is the safe bet, especially because blue team has a lot of close range characters and she would always be in the front line, so she could buff the units that you put up front, and then Blanc will buff the units in the back row. So yeah, that's a good combination, and definitely if you do not have investment in data machining, go for it. Go for HP. Standard one as well. Kurdan, with him being a fighter, I think the lifesteal set is pretty fine, and also he has a lot of resistances, so recovering HP is valuable. Nothing strange for Leroro. Novik HP. I put him with the HP set because he's a tank, it doesn't have provoke, but still, it's nothing really. There is nothing really useful for him. If you already have data machining, not really needed. So you could go for some kind of hybrid setup with defense and HP. Not the best, but still fine. This guy, lifesteal. Yeah, also Urek. Once you have a lot of investment in him, the lifesteal set is definitely good. And the other alternative would be the HP set, but at that point you already have Data Machine, which is preferable because she deals way less damage than Urek. Then Amigo Shards, again HP, so that it can generate bigger shields, and also it doesn't have Provoke, so that's really the only option. Unlock lifesteal, okay, that's okay. Apple probably won't have the ignition weapon set unlocked, but if you did, HP is viable. Crafter attack speed, lifesteal, okay. Hansung. Here you could even go with the attack speed set because he's a ranged unit, so I think I would probably go with the L set. Huarian, Runda set. Actually, she could work even with the L set because she has shields, and if the shields are hit, it will not interrupt the bonus from the 4-piece of the L set. But still, I think Huarian being a support is better if she has the HP one, the HP piece, because you won't probably have another unit with it in the front line that you could place in the front line. Then Bergamot on Mika, okay, no, it's okay. Elset on Viol, that's pretty much a must. You don't even have an alternative. This is just so good. Shia and Yellowy, both with the HP set because they are both supportive units. Child and Dorsey lifesteal, that's okay. Add in lifesteal, fine. Lozel as well. These two guys with the attack speed set, pretty self-explanatory. Shane with the lifesteal, really good. She needs it, and her ultimate can bring her back to full life with the L set, with the Bergamot set, so really good. Yeon Hee, Runda set, just because her passive gives her a second life. I think you can sometime use her as a frontline damage sponge, like she just takes hit and takes damage from the opponent's assassins. So I usually use her in the front line, and I really like to have an HP set there because I don't have any other unit. Zahard, that we're going to talk about in a second, will have the lifesteal set on. So I really like Yeonhee with the HP set. But you could go with the L set if you decide to bring her in the back and rely on her a little bit more for damage. Yuri, again, HP set. She doesn't really have anything else, and yeah, that's pretty much all. Okay. The last unit is Data Zahard. He wants the Bergamot set if you have him heavily invested. Otherwise, you can go with the Runda set. That's also fine. Yeah, not much else to say about these guys. I don't know if you have any questions. Please let me know in the comments down below. And I don't want to keep this video any longer because it's already been 2 hours. I hope you guys managed to stick with me until now, and I hope I could give you guys a lot of useful insights on what I think about when I think of gearing units, and I hope this file can help you with some useful information you can go back to when you have some doubts and something like that. So thank you guys for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. That will probably be about dupes or exclusive equipment. Okay, thank you again for watching. Please drop a like if you liked the video, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you, and see you in the next one. Bye.